Summon the Spectre.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to episode 30 of the SpectreVerse Podcast. I'm your host, JariSpectre, and I want to thank you guys for joining me on this Tuesday, wherever you may be watching or listening from. Episode 30, the Steph Curry episode. And speaking of Steph Curry, is it me? And WWE was just pulling up from pretty much half court, praying that they would hit? Well, needless to say, after Raw and SmackDown, I can't believe I'm saying this, they were drilling it. They're on a heat streak. After this week, and we're going to talk about what happened on this week for Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, and we're going to talk about AEW Grand Slam, which a lot of people were giving some sort of slack on, which we'll discuss it. But realistically, AEW Grand Slam was also very, very good. We had a really good week of pro wrestling. Is there things that still need improvement? Absolutely. Not every show is going to be perfect. But what I will say is WWE seemingly, and I use that term very, very loosely, seemingly is starting to get their head out of their ass. And we're going to discuss it. If you love pro wrestling, make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the bell for all notifications. Without further ado, let's go ahead and let's start with what happened on Monday Night Raw. Show starts with Roman Reigns. He comes out and he at least acknowledges Seth Rollins and talking about the history of the Shield and him finally beating him at SummerSlam and pretty much giving Seth his flowers because he does deserve them. LA Knight then interrupts him, which was a little bit of an eyebrow raiser at least. LA Knight comes out and says that Roman is a fraud and that he wants a shot at the title since he had to run through the entire bloodline at SummerSlam. And last time, it wasn't so one-on-one against Roman. Roman then says LA Knight is really the true fraud here and says he is wasting his time and he deserves to go to the back of the line. As Roman's walking away, LA says that he is constantly using the numbers game against him, and he's everything that Roman isn't. Once he grows a pair, he can come find him. So what this means is that Roman and LA Knight is going to be your next big marquee matchup for the World Heavyweight Championship. Considering the talent that is on Monday Night Raw at this very moment, you can only do storylines that are worth telling in not necessarily a specific order, unless the story and the writing calls for it. But what this means is that there's not enough star power on Monday Night Raw. Granted, you got stars. You got your Oba Femis, your Bron Breakkers, your Pentas, so on and so forth. You got talent. But as far as going against Roman Reigns, there needs to be some sort of substance. There needs to be some sort of meaning. I don't think we're going to get much meaning from the bloodline story that's currently going on. I feel like that is going to be a very slow burn, so we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. But LA Knight, I do feel, and we've said it numerous times on this podcast here, LA Knight is that one guy who deserves to constantly be in that main event title picture, but time and time and time again, he has been kicking to the curb, thrown to the wayside, and treated like nothing. And I think fans and everybody's voices are finally saying enough is enough. Get this man a main event spot and keep him there. Because, I mean, let's keep it a buck here. Keep it a bean, keep it 100. LA Knight is not beating Roman Reigns. I know we all want to see him become the World Heavyweight Champion. We all want to see him finally reach the top of the mountain. But with Roman up there, it's not going to happen. It sucks, but it's not going to happen. When is this going to happen? My guess, if I had to be a betting man, I think this is going to happen at Money in the Bank. Not sure if they officially announced that match yet. And if they do, they'll probably do it on Raw after this podcast goes up. But realistically, it's honestly, a really good main event for Monday Night Raw. At least that we can actually tell some sort of storyline, something that hasn't been told already. Because, you think of it years ago when Roman was the undisputed champion and he went up against LA Knight. You can only tell the same story so many times before it's just okay, enough is enough. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do different now versus then. Obviously, they talked about the numbers game and how Roman used that last time against LA Knight, and that's the reason why he's not champion. But then going off of that, you look at what he did at SummerSlam and what he's been doing as the World Heavyweight Champion. The bloodline has not helped him in any way, shape, or form yet. So I'm curious to see how WWE is going to continue to follow up with this story, and how do we enhance it into something more than just numbers, more than a numbers game. There's got to be something more, something deeper, something to truly get fans fully behind LA Knight, rather than just trying to split the crowd, which is fine. You can do that, but I think if they're smart, they want to get everybody on LA Knight's side. But if you can only use the numbers game, it's going to be really, really hard to do that against a guy like Roman. That's just the sad truth. First match, we had Javon Evans versus Ethan Page. It was a fun little TV match. Javon Evans ended up picking up the win. There was a nice spot for the finish where he hopped over Ethan Page and the referee to do the OG cutter. Very, very fun looking spot. But then after the match, we had the re-debut of Big Cass. He comes out and he attacks Javon Evans, gives him this black hole slam looking thing. I forget. He has a name for that move. I forget it off the top of my head. But Big Cass makes his return, and I will say he looks fantastic. I'm glad that he's finally back in the WWE. I feel like him being a tall focal point in the mid-card will help, at least for the time being. I'm praying they don't kick him to the curb once again like Rusev, but I guess we'll have to just wait and see how WWE wants to follow up with Big Cass. Backstage, Roman is talking to the Bloodline, and he says he's very disappointed in all of them for losing at SummerSlam. Jay then says, hey man, say the word and we'll go take care of LA Knight. And Roman immediately says, say the word. No, there is no play. There's no word. I will take care of LA Knight. And then LA Knight is walking past him in the distance, and he gets up in Jey Uso's face and just starts pretty much just poking the bear. And so realistically, I think LA Knight's strategy here is to almost be on the side of Roman. Like Roman's like, I want to do this by myself. And then LA Knight's like that one kid in the background. It's just like, yeah, he's going to do it by himself, to get the Bloodline actually pissed off at him until they take matters into their own hands. And then now there's beef between Roman, Jay, Jacob, and Jimmy. Curious to see how all that's going to go. Liv Morgan then comes out, and she talks shit and says how that she retained her title. She also put over the Judgment Day, being the new Women's Intercontinental Champion is Raquel Rodriguez. I like that the barbed wire is a part of the title now that she's holding it. The only question I have is, what does barbed wire have to do with the Judgment Day? What does it have to do with Raquel? I don't think I've ever once seen her use barbed wire ever. So that part was really, really confusing. I mean, it looks cool, but I just don't think it fits. That's just me. And then Sol Ruca comes out, and it sets up the next match, which is Sol Ruca versus Roxanne Perez. This match ended in a no contest when the Judgment Day got involved and attacked Sol. After the match, a returning Becky Lynch comes out, and she says that she's not out here to call out Raquel with the IC title, but instead she's out there to call out Liv Morgan, saying that she is essentially a glorified valet considering she hasn't defended her title in over 100 days until SummerSlam. Liv then says Becky is just jealous and should be at home with her daughter instead of being in front of her face. Becky then says she's not even the greatest women's champion to even sleep with Dominic Mysterio, which got a nice pop from the crowd. And after that happened, Stephanie Vaquer's music hits, and she makes her big grand return, and she then immediately goes after Liv Morgan. She clears out her and the Judgment Day, and then has a massive stare down between herself and Becky Lynch. This is the type of shit we need to see on a week-to-week basis. Women's storytelling. It's simple. It's really, really simple. You give your top stars the time of day to shine, and it gives us the reason to care. You give us fascinating storylines, fascinating matchups, and the people are going to care. Or they're at least going to be like, I wonder what they're going to do next. Simple. It is so, so simple. After that, we had a video package of Brock Lesnar and his career, which is what they showed at the Raw after WrestleMania, because everybody at that point thought that Brock was officially retired. However, then he came back and tried to, clear out the storyline between him and Oba Femi, which we saw at SummerSlam. We ended up honestly getting the confirmation from Brock on the Pat McAfee show that yes, he is officially retired after that Hell in a Cell match. He said after WrestleMania that he had a little bit left in the tank, but come Hell in a Cell time, he knew his tank was on E, and that is officially it. Brock Lesnar is officially retired from WWE. I said it on my WrestleMania review, which you guys can go check out. But Brock Lesnar is an outlier. There will never, ever be another Brock Lesnar. Not just in pro wrestling, not just in UFC, just in sports point blank period. That man was special. He still is special. He literally can do things that nobody ever can do. And at least not for a guy his size. So, Brock Lesnar is 1 in a million. He had a fantastic career. Very, very happy for him. And honestly, he seems like a very genuine dude. Whether you like him or not. I very much feel like he is a very genuine dude at heart. So they played that video package. After that was over, Oba Femi walks past Paul Heyman and says to tell Brock that I say thank you. Heyman then says congratulations and shakes Oba's hand. Cuts to commercial break. After the break, Oba comes out to the ring and he puts over Brock even more. He says that Brock tested him and said that at WrestleMania it was, can he swim? Which the answer was yes. And then at SummerSlam it was, how long can you swim for? Oba says that the Beast can finally rest now. He says that he will forge his own way with a new crop of talent, and if anyone has a problem with it, they can answer to him. As Oba Femi is leaving, the Vision and Bron Breakker's theme interrupt him while he's walking on the stage, and him and Bron Breakker and Oba Femi have this massive stare down, and you could easily tell the crowd was slowly starting to erupt. So essentially what we're doing now is we need to give Oba Femi another side quest. And that side quest is going to be none other than Bron Breakker. I'm super, super stoked about this. Because I said specifically on this podcast, you need to build up your stars. Whether they're winning or losing, you need to build them up. Not every build has to be constantly them just taking wins and taking wins. People can look great in defeat. Trust me, I know. If you take the proper precautions and steps to tell a proper story between obviously what's going to be your next future star as well as your second biggest future star, have them constantly be intertwined with each other. You think about it. Attitude Era, Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, two of your biggest stars. PG Era, Randy Orton and John Cena. Obviously, there was more stars lingering in between, but you get the idea. And then this era, it was Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Your next era is going to be Oba Femi and Bron Breakker. And the best way to keep them and their momentum going is to have them feud with each other. Start building the blocks now so that it'll pay off in the next 5, 10, 15 years. So I'm very, very happy to see that, okay, we're not just going to throw Oba Femi up to the very, very tippy top quite yet, but let's help build up Bron Breakker with this. Let's get him some momentum behind him. Eventually, he will obviously break away from the Vision. I don't think anybody is going to say that, oh, that's a terrible idea. Get him away from the Vision as soon as possible. And then from there, Oba Femi and him can exchange some wins. Oba can, end up getting the one up. Bron, out of anger, takes out the Vision, and he can go on his separate ways, and they can just go like this. And then eventually, once it's time to come back, look at all of that you can just build off of for both men, so that when they do come back, now it means that much more. So that's why I'm super stoked about it. Both guys deserve to have something of substantial note going on at all times. Treat your future with some fucking decency. So I'm very, very happy to see that that's going to be the next big feud and future feud for years to come. I mean, they want to talk about WrestleMania, future WrestleMania main events. Fucking, it's staring at you right in the face, and I'm glad they're at least starting that process now. Next match, Bron Breakker heads to the ring, and he's facing Joe Hendry. This was a absolute squash match. Bron Breakker wins, and he immediately storms after the win. He immediately storms to the backstage area. After the match, Bron heads straight to the back as Theory attacks Joe Hendry, and then Tozawa comes in and makes the save. So essentially just building up the Vision versus Alpha Academy. Chad Gable comes out and he thanks Penta. He also thanks the fans for sticking with him for 10 plus years. Penta then comes out and also gives Gable his flowers. Dominic Mysterio and JD McDonough interrupt him and say that Chad is not even a true luchador. And then a tag match is then made. Judgment Day versus Gable and Penta. It was a fun little tag match. The babyfaces ended up winning. Nothing too crazy here. Backstage, Bron Breakker is walking and he runs into Paul Heyman and he says, "Where is Oba Femi?" And then that's where Heyman says that he doesn't even know. And Bron then immediately rebuttals him and says, "Well, I thought you two were best friends now." And then they just walk away. So clearly they're starting to make the proper steps to get Bron Breakker away from everybody. And then in the main event, we had Jacob Fatu versus Royce Keys in a street fight. This was, I'm assuming, going to be their big blow-off feud for what they were telling for the past couple of months. Jacob Fatu ended up winning. Nothing too crazy here. After the match, Jacob Fatu grabbed a chair, wrapped it around Royce Keys' face, and gave him a bunch of hip attacks in the corner. Roman then comes out and watches from the stage, and he acknowledges that Jacob Fatu was taking him out, and he raises the one up to the sky to end the show. This was by far one of the best Monday Night Raws that we have seen probably all year. It's a very sad truth. This Raw felt focused, it felt story-driven, it felt like a true reset on the stories and the roster that you have. And now they're like, okay, let's, like, realistically, how do we want to better this product? Because clearly there's a lot of complaints, not just from the fans online or just point blank period. There is complaints from ESPN. There's complaints from TKO. Triple H and that writing team is in the hot seat right now. And what they do going forward is going to determine if everybody has jobs after this. It's just business 101. You know, we talk a lot about the pro wrestling side of things, but as a business, they are in the hot seat. And they need to fucking produce properly. And they need to get good ratings now for the next couple of months in order to keep things moving at the pace that TKO wants them to be moving at. But needless to say, as long as if this is the true new standard that we are going to get on a week-to-week basis, then shit, we are going to be just fine. Granted, there's always room for improvement, but man, it was like night and day from last week to this week. Like, it literally honestly felt like two totally different writing teams writing this show. That's how captivating everything felt. So, I guess we're going to have to wait and see how things look in the next couple of weeks and just pray to God that this was not some sort of fluke. Switching gears, AEW Grand Slam Mexico. I know a lot of people were saying that this show was so unnecessary. It didn't really do a whole lot of things for All In, which is true. There was maybe like 2 things on this show that really helped build towards All In. But other than that, this was essentially just like a mini pay-per-view for AEW since they were in Arena Mexico. I will say, the venue, Arena Mexico, looks fantastic. I know there's a lot of history there. The setup that they had was phenomenal. The crowd was absolutely rocking from start to finish. And if you love pro wrestling, you loved this show. I thought this show was fantastic. Obviously, because I'm a pro wrestler, I study a lot of the matches. I watch a lot of matches. So for me, personally, I loved this show. Granted, it didn't, as far as a storyline progression standpoint, it really didn't do a whole lot going into All In. But as far as showcasing what you have and the matches that you were putting out, they were good matches. Granted, did everybody in those matches deserve to be there? Did it make sense per storyline? No. No, it didn't. But at the same time, how do you properly get more people on your roster over? Do you have them just do backstage segments? Do you have them do some video vignettes? Or do you have them go out there and actually perform? And you look at like who performed tonight, it was a little bit of everything. First match, we had an 8-man tag match. We had Cope, Christian, and the Young Bucks versus the Death Riders in Pac, Wheeler Yuta, Daniel Garcia, and Jon Moxley. It was a very fun tag match, and the Death Riders ended up winning with a roll-up after there were some miscommunications between Cope and Wheeler Yuta got distracted with the referee. And so Cope went to go hit the ropes, but Mac Jackson was on the apron and they accidentally ran right into each other. And that's when Jon Moxley rolled up Adam Copeland, grabbing the tights for the 1-2-3. Like I said, this didn't really do a whole lot of building anything going into All In. Obviously, it just showed the distraction and the miscommunication between the Bucks and Cope. It's not enough to like really sense some tension for the tag match going into All In, but it was just a showcase match. Next match, we had Tommaso Ciampa versus Commander versus Andrade for the number 1 spot in the Casino Gauntlet at All In. You could have went a different couple of ways with this, I will say. I was thinking it was either going to be Ciampa or Andrade, which it ended up being Andrade. This match was very, very good. And then after the match, after Andrade won, this is where things really started to pick up. Andrade's cutting a promo in front of the Mexican crowd, and he pretty much says he's going to go on and he is going to be the one that wins the Casino Gauntlet. As he's cutting this promo, MJF's music hits, and then he comes out and attacks Andrade with the Triple B, and then takes back his Dynamite Diamond ring, which Andrade stole from him last time. MJF then grabs the mic and says he is still everyone's champion. And at Beach Break, he had Kenny Omega won until Will Ospreay got involved. And next week, he is going to be qualifying for the number 2 spot in the Casino Gauntlet. And then he is going to go on and win it for a second year in a row. And then when he wins the Gauntlet, he will be the one that signs the contract, and he will take on either Kenny Omega or Will Ospreay, but he is the last true champion. A lot of us complained about taking the title off of MJF because he deserved to go into All In as champion. There were a lot of question marks regarding the decision to take the title off of MJF and giving it to Kenny. Obviously, at this point, I think it is pretty much safe to say, at least from my perspective, that it was not a ploy by MJF. MJF, I feel like at this point, either he is still hurt, but he's good enough to go and to keep it to a bare minimum. At least just from like a wrestler standpoint. My only other guess, which I feel like is probably the most correct one, is that it was Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega were the ones to use their star power, quote unquote, to have that be the true main event of All In instead of having MJF in there. I feel like they wanted their story to come full circle, and they wanted a proper and your biggest moment to do that. I understand that MJF being in that main event spot, that was his spot to begin with. But obviously, there's only a certain amount of people that can make specific calls like that. And I wouldn't be surprised that Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay said, hey, let's have it be us versus him. And so maybe there were a bunch of different factors. It's a lot of stuff that isn't out to the public. And I'm not one to, go off of conspiracy or assumption. I want to know what is factual. And until we know that, there's not much else we can really do. I'm still super, super stoked to see Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega. But it just begs the question, why not MJF? That is literally the biggest question mark. Why not MJF? I think he is easily now the odds-on favorite to win the Casino Gauntlet back-to-back years. I think that's actually the right move to make at this point. But something about that whole situation, it still seems fishy. I don't know what exactly to think about it. I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm not saying that I love it. I'm just very much in the middle, or it's like, it's cool, but something's going on. Something is going on. Next match we had Divine Dominion and Mercedes Moné versus Willow Nightingale and the Brawling Birds. This was a fine little TV tag match. I will say I do wish that there was an explanation from either Divine Dominion or from Mercedes or from AEW Point Blank period as to why they are aligned with each other. That is the one thing on TV that we have still yet to get. Why are they working together? What is the point? Is this like a business thing that they're doing? Like, what is the sole purpose of having Divine Dominion and Mercedes Moné working together? Because this is now, 2-3 weeks that we've seen them paired off with each other? What is the reasoning? What is the purpose? It's little things like that that can go such a long way. Either way, Willow Nightingale and the Brawling Birds ended up winning this match. It really doesn't do anything going into All In. It was very much, hey, these two people are going at it for the titles. These two teams are going at it for the titles. Let's pair the bad guys and the good guys and throw them out there. The next match, this next match was fucking awesome. Kyle Fletcher versus Speedball Mike Bailey for the International Championship. Holy cow. I will say, we've talked about this the past couple of weeks. Kyle Fletcher is on a different fucking planet right now. As far as in-ring work specifically, he is on fire. And Speedball, I know a lot of people were like originally questioning what AEW was going to do with Speedball when he showed up. Man, he's been killing it. And these two guys, they are just constantly rocking on the exact same wavelength. It's very, very cool to see. Makes for some fantastic wrestling on television. And you know for a fucking fact that the storyline between Fletcher and the Don Callis family and him wanting to constantly do things by himself is eventually going to bite him in the ass. And then, honestly, it's going to, maybe not next month or a couple of months, but eventually he's going to want to leave the Don Callis family because he's sick of their shit and he wants to do things on his own. And when he becomes babyface, that shit is going to be awesome too. But realistically, this is going to lead to the rematch at All In, where we get Speedball versus Kyle Fletcher, and then that's where we crown Speedball as the new international champion. That's just my personal pick right there. But this match was great. Kyle Fletcher ended up retaining. Very, very, very good match. If you did not watch it, do yourself a favor. Go watch it. Next match we had Kazuchika Okada, Hechicero, and Kevin Knight of the Don Callis family versus Mystico, Chris Jericho, and Darby Allin. None of these guys really have much of anything to do with each other as far as going into All In. Obviously, the Don Callis family is the Don Callis family. Kevin Knight and Darby Allin are going at it at All In, so that makes sense. And then Jericho and Mystico are kind of just, they were just kind of slotted in there to be on the show. It was a fun six-man tag, I will say. And the crowd absolutely loved it. But something about it, I don't know what it was, but they just, for whatever reason, they're like, who would be great on this show? And they just kind of picked a bunch of people, a couple people that will make sense for All In, throw them in a tag match. They'll love it. Which it was still good. It was still very good. But Babyfaces ended up winning this one too. Then we had Chris Statlander versus Persephone. Hikaru Shida during the match, as well as Thunder Rosa, ended up both getting involved, and Persephone ended up retaining the CMLL Women's Championship. Hangman and Brodito versus The Demand for the Trios titles. Once again, another very solid six-man tag. There was a lot of multi-tags on the show. We probably could have gotten away with not doing one of them here. But I get it. They want to make the show as grand as they possibly can. So I do understand it. But at the same time, I as far as a weekly television, I know a lot of people are complaining about the overrun and so on and so forth. Me, I'm take it or leave it pretty much. But at the same time, it's just like, I can see where the frustration's coming from. This was a very good six-person tag as well. And we ended up getting new trios champions with Hangman and Brodito. My question then is, why the fuck did you put the titles on The Demand to begin with if they were only going to hold it for 1 week? And then second, what does Hangman and Brodito have to do with anything? We won't know until we get our answers. It just, for me, I don't get it. I don't get it. And then in our main event, we had Will Ospreay versus Mark Davis in a street fight. Obviously, the storied history between the United Empire, that's there. and they want to keep building up Will Ospreay's journey going into All In. It started off very simple, but eventually got very, very bloody. There were some really cool spots towards the second half of the match, but honestly, this really didn't do much of anything as far as building up Mark Davis goes. He's still very, very good. It's just the story that they're trying to tell, I don't know if it necessarily makes a whole lot of sense unless Will Ospreay was handpicking who he wanted to wrestle going into All In. That would be my only other guess. But Will Ospreay ended up winning this one and continues his momentum going into All In. There was a lot of wrestling on the show and a lot of very good wrestling on the show. Questionable decisions, absolutely. There's always going to be questionable decisions. Mainly the big one being the return of MJF and having him just stuck in the Casino Gauntlet versus being the main event. That's really the big talking point and the big question of why. But until we get that, there's not much else you can truly do about it. And then finally, hopping over to Friday Night SmackDown, this was the true follow-up, I feel like, from SummerSlam. This, due to the returns and the directions of the returns, this had the most questions following SummerSlam. And I will say, SmackDown was very good. It wasn't fantastic, but once again, you had a really good Monday Night Raw, and now people were anticipating, okay, now what about SmackDown? And SmackDown, as far as the two main stories coming from SummerSlam, they followed up on those perfectly. And we're going to talk about that. Not everything was perfect on this show, but the two main focal points from SummerSlam were addressed, and they were addressed properly. The opening segment, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, and Kevin Owens. The show opened up with a tribute graphic for the late Dory Funk Jr., so God rest his soul, Dory Funk. Cody Rhodes entered the arena to address his SummerSlam loss to CM Punk following Randy Orton's sudden return and the RKO. CM Punk then comes out and offered Cody Rhodes a title match whenever he wants it. Kevin Owens then, fresh off of the winning the number one contendership at SummerSlam, he comes out and confronts CM Punk. Owens called Punk an arrogant, unchained sociopath and promised to humble him, while Punk asserted that his arrogance is justified because he backs it up in the ring. General Manager Nick Aldis watched on the apron as tensions were building up as well. Eventually, they had to get all the officials in to pull Kevin Owens and CM Punk away from each other. There were no fists thrown, but there was a lot of tension. The main things I loved about this was CM Punk immediately assuming that it was Cody Rhodes immediately assuming that CM Punk had something to do with Randy Orton. So pretty much like he is just obsessed. And he's just like, did you have anything to do with this? What the fuck was that? Blah, 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 blah. Like, just filled with anger. Like, what the fuck? But CM Punk just being like, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. Why would I have anything to do with that? Like, you sound nuts right now. And then Kevin Owens and CM Punk and their very history stories together specifically. Obviously, they both came from the original Ring of Honor. Kevin Owens and CM Punk know each other to a very personal level. Will we truly see what that looks like on WWE television? I doubt it. But what this means is they were starting to just touch on the things that they don't like about each other, and then they stopped, and that's where the tension was built. So now what they need to do is follow up immediately on this next episode. They need to pick up exactly where they left off of and give us a little bit more and then pull away. You always want to be left with more going into the next one. And considering that this storyline is just starting for these two, even though there's plenty of history to go off of, you got your nice solid base. But now next week let's talk about the details. Let's get into why Kevin Owens doesn't like CM Punk. Let's get into the reason why CM Punk doesn't like Kevin Owens. Let's start to really attack that more. It was a really, really good opening segment. Very, very strong. U.S. Championship match. Baron Corbin versus Trick Williams. This was a rematch from SummerSlam. And Corbin ended up retaining the title after striking Trick Williams with the U.S. Championship belt while the referee's back was turned. And it ended up just being a dirty pinfall. We need to get that furry title off of Baron Corbin immediately and give him something that fits him more. Hell, even just give him the original title back. Just give him something that truly fits Baron Corbin, because him carrying around that furry title, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. Backstage segment. Nick Aldis, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Baron Corbin. Kevin Owens met with Nick Aldis and locked in his undisputed WWE Championship match against CM Punk on August 21st in Toronto. Very curious as to why he specifically chose that date of all dates to lock in that title match. Sami Zayn then confronted Owens and was talking about his title shot. Owens acknowledged that he did in fact insert himself into Sami's match, and he apologized, but then stated that Sami would have done the exact same thing if the roles were reversed. And then Baron Corbin bragged that nobody in the locker room could take his U.S. title, leading to an ambush attack by Carmelo Hayes, who revealed Nick Aldis granted him a title match against Baron Corbin for next week. Women's Championship celebration and tag team match. We had Chelsea Green come out to the ring, and the U.S. champion Tiffany Stratton also came out to celebrate. They were interrupted by Fatal Influence, which led right to a WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match between all four competitors. Fallon Henley and Lainey Reed ended up defeating Chelsea Green and Tiffany to retain the titles after Reed hit Green with a fatal flaw. And then after the match, Nia Jax and Lash Legend ended up interrupting and attacking both Chelsea Green and Tiffany, with Nia Jax posing over Green holding the interim Women's Championship belt. And we do got some news regarding the whole quote-unquote interim. It sounds like this interim is going to get dropped and become the new permanent Women's Championship, considering that Rhea Ripley did undergo knee surgery, and she is going to be out for a substantial amount of time. I would say probably 6 to 9 months, give or take. So figure this is August, September, October, November, December, January, February. So she might be close to Rumble season. If not Rumble, there's always the Elimination Chamber. And if not, then you have WrestleMania. So she's going to miss a good chunk of time, but realistically, she will be all right. Then we had an in-ring promo between Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. Randy Orton came out and explained his actions at SummerSlam, and Cody Rhodes joined him in the ring and as he demanded some answers. Orton explained that losing the title at WrestleMania caused something inside of him to snap. He declared that the Viper/Legend Killer version of himself was back to ensure that Cody never holds that championship ever again. Cody then countered it and said that without the championship to protect, he is no longer the quote-unquote good guy. And when I heard him say that he doesn't have to be the good guy anymore, I was like, holy shit, are we going to get a dark side to Cody Rhodes finally? Is the Viper actually going to bring out that Cody Rhodes that all of us have been asking for months now? So that definitely perked up my ears and it definitely grabbed my attention. And I need them to follow up as far as to what that is going to look like. And then in the main event, we had Charlotte Flair versus Jade Cargill. Michin and B-Fab attempted to interfere during Cargill's match, but Alexa Bliss ended up making her surprise return with Lily to even out the odds. Lily the doll, that is. As Alexa is on the stage and the ramp, the lights go out, and then a debuting Tatum Paxley is on the top rope, and she jumps off and hits a crossbody on a Michin and B-Fab. And after that, Charlotte executed an avalanche natural selection onto Jade to score the win. So, we got Tatum Paxley inserted into this women's division. I feel like that's a good get for the SmackDown division. Jade Cargill is fucking god-awful at pro wrestling. I gave her a lot of benefit of the doubt, but man, she is terrible. She is literally like almost neck and neck with Nia. She is so bad. Absolutely god-awful. And that really was SmackDown. It was a very, very good show. A very story-driven show. If week-to-week television can feel this focused consistently throughout Monday and Friday, WWE might be turning a new leaf. And I'm super, super stoked to see what this week is going to look like. And we'll talk about it on the next episode of the SpectreVerse Podcast, which will be episode 31. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me on this Tuesday. If you guys are new here, please make sure that you hit the like button and that subscribe button. Make sure you turn on the bell for all notifications. You guys can follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at JariSpectre. You guys can also follow the SpectreVerse page on Facebook as well at the SpectreVerse. Anytime a weekly podcast goes up, it will go there first. And then you guys can also, if you're really into video games, you guys can go follow my gaming channel as well. That is at JariSpectre Gaming. Otherwise, JariSpectre Live is the app that you're going to be looking for. I had a very busy weekend. I ended up shaving my head. So that's what my new style looks like. I love it. I also was in the ACW All-Star Rumble. I ended up making it to the Final Four before I was brutally interrupted and thrown out by Aaron Arsenal, who was not in the Rumble after I eliminated him. So clearly I have a bone to pick with him, and we'll do that in the next couple of months. Or at least that's what I expect, if he even makes it that far. So we'll have to wait how that goes. And then this past Saturday, I made my return to HWE out in Green Bay. That was a very, very fun show. Was in a triple threat with Doom Montgomery and Artful Eldridge. And I ended up scoring my first win since I returned from injury. It was a very, very good feeling. I was glad to be back. The Green Bay crowd loved to have me back, even though I am no hero, I am no villain. I am simply here to do my duty. And that's going to do it for this week. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. And until episode 31, we will see each and every single one of you guys next time. Peace out.